For those of you who might be newer to us and listening, unfortunately, a couple of the guys on this show are children, and they won't eat eggplant because they're giant man babies.
I love vegetables.
They are
You're
gross.
missing
It's
out.
the bastard parm.
It's not.
It's not.
That would be turkey parm.
It's the second best parm.
Everybody pause. Please, everybody stop. This argument
not
is
wrong.
over. Gordo, pardon me. Turkey parm?
You could parm anything.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Bewitched. Bewitched went 254 episodes over 8 seasons on ABC. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called I, Darrin, Take This Witch Samantha, which originally aired September 17th, 1964. To get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the boys, Gordo, Ferg, Joe, and Nick. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Woo,
Hello.
spooky season, bitches.
Spooky dookie, baby.
Welcome back to our third annual spooky month Halloween-tober thing where we do 4 episodes of Halloween or supernatural type shows all throughout the month of October. We never officially named it, so but this is our 3rd year running. It's actually, I think it's crazy to think that this is the 3rd year we've been doing it, that more than anything.
Yeah.
Spooky. I have an aunt who thinks she's a lighthouse. It's spooky.
And I'll say this, every year it gets more and more challenging to find 4 shows we can do.
Well, I will say this. The IP on Bewitched is pretty bananas. If you look up the history of this show, like, there's so many, like, spin-offs, remakes. There's that terrible Will Ferrell movie from a few years back.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they're even
that's
making a
right.
new animated show about it that was announced, like, 2 months ago. Like, there's... Bewitched is kind of forever going.
It's
Wow.
a stupid movie.
For the movie's about the pilot episode, I didn't even realize that.
The movie is like the show existed, the original show existed, but so they're rebooting it, but the new Samantha just happens to actually be a witch. It's
What a
really-
coincidence!
But the pilot episode, oh, so they're recording a
So
pilot episode. They're not remaking the original pilot episode.
they're remaking the pilot that we covered.
Oh,
that we're,
okay.
that we're about to cover, I mean.
Well, now I feel like I have to watch the stupid fucking movie, and I didn't want to.
You
But now I'm like
don't.
really curious.
Look,
I love Will Ferrell.
Yeah,
It's
I was gonna say
not.
I love Will Ferrell. This is what happened to me too. We were at a bar and they were playing that, like, the girl from Stranger Things' Sherlock Holmes movie or something, like on mute in the background, like Enola Jones or whatever it's called, or Enola
Yeah.
Holmes. And we were like, you know what we never saw? That Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly Sherlock Holmes movie. I know what we're doing as soon as we get home, and I've never been more mad at spending $4 in my entire life than having to
Why
watch
do you
that
spend
entire
money on
Sherlock
these
Holmes movie.
things?
Why do you
Because I wanted
pay
to see
money?
it.
I
You
know, but there's
There's other ways,
ways.
Joe.
I don't like to steal from people who make...
Okay, do you feel better about buying that piece of garbage now?
No, I feel very mad, but they deserved the $4. I'm glad I didn't spend like $17 to see it in the theater. That would have been a riot scenario.
The only thing good about the Bewitched movie is Steve Carell plays Uncle Arthur.
I guess that is true. Yeah, and Uncle Arthur, he's Paul Lynde in Bewitched the show, right?
Yeah.
Guess I'm the secret square.
I'm Uncle
I don't think that's the
Arthur.
first Paul Lynde impression we've had in the history of the show, weirdly. And we've never covered a Paul Lynde sitcom.
He also sounds like the creepy guy from
Family Guy?
Family Guy, apparently.
Yeah.
Basically.
It almost feels silly to ask, but has anyone here not watched Bewitched?
No, you know
No.
what though? Not only did I've seen this show, I've seen a lot of it on Nick at Night, but I oddly remembered a lot from this episode, and I didn't really remember seeing this episode specifically,
Interesting.
but I ended up remembering a lot of it.
As I say, this episode felt new, like, to me, and like I didn't really remember a lot about it. I'd watched Bewitched a million times because like Nick at Night and stuff.
Bewitched
say
Be
this is-
Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah, Bewitched Be Wednesday, yep.
That was the worst one.
I like Taxi
No,
Tuesday.
Dragnet Friday.
I love
Hotter
Dragnet.
Friday.
No, remember the original one was Dragnet Friday.
They would change it every summer. Welcome Back, Kotter was definitely one. What was Chico and the Man was on one night for one summer.
I don't remember that ever being in the lineup.
Me too.
It definitely was, because there's no other way I would be able to watch like every episode of Chico and the Man before digital, you know?
Monster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched Be Wednesdays, I Dream of Jeannie Thursdays, which I don't think had anything.
That one's bad too.
And then Welcome Back, Kotter Friday.
No, because you just said, oh, okay.
All there was Kotter Friday.
Yeah,
Really?
Monster Monday, Lucy
I
Tuesday.
remember Dragnet.
They've changed the lineup. It hasn't been. It wasn't always the same. They did change it over time.
I thought the Dragnet was the one that they changed, but then
I
again,
remember
it's a Friday
the
night.
first year I ever saw it. It wasn't Monster Monday. It was Mary Monday, and Mary Tyler Moore.
Ah,
was the
that's
first one.
right.
Are you sure it wasn't Chico in the Monday?
With that lazy son of a bitch, Grandpa Joe.
Fuck Grandpa Joe, piece of shit.
We've talked about that on here before, but it is one of my favorite. Like, of the dumb internet things, that is one of my favorite. When the world just turned on that guy.
Him and his fucking cabbage water not getting a job ass. Now, one thing I want to talk about this episode real quick before we get into it, though, was this so I've seen Bewitched, obviously, a million times, too. I don't remember a lot of everything from this episode, but I certainly don't remember a sitcom from 1964 being this fucking horny. This is the horniest early 60s sitcom I think I've ever seen. It is constant.
It is
jokes
strange
about
for the time.
Trying to get sex, and
Yeah.
they had sex last night, and he didn't clean up the kitchen fast enough. Like, all this stuff is like surprising coming from a few years before that. They were like, you can't even show a couple having the same bed.
I didn't think it was that horny.
It was more. I would say. I guess like the way Joe says it makes it sound more explicit. But I know what he means in that if you look at like the general where sitcoms were at that point in time. And, like, you remember, like, going back as far as, like, the Dick Van Dyke Show, where they couldn't share a bed because that was inappropriate. Like,
what year was Dick Van Dyke, though?
Wasn't too far before this, I think.
Well, don't forget, we had I Love Lucy fucking breaking down the barriers. She got pregnant and had a baby.
So the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Real life, no, but
66.
I Love
Still, they didn't do stuff like that.
No,
61.
No. But with I Love Lucy.
Final episode.
And Desi Arnaz were really married IRL, so I feel like
that doesn't matter.
Because it does. Because in the
it was their baby in real life. I think it changes things. Yeah,
but it wasn't their real baby. That wasn't Desi.
Yes, it
Jr.,
was.
Yes, it was.
We played Little Ricky the whole time.
Yeah,
yes.
The whole time he was that's their son.
That's Desi Jr.
That doesn't change. Like, all right, so yeah, but the people who are deciding this are like standards and practices on television, like networks. It's not like a priest is approving it.
But because they were a real couple, I feel like they got to get away with a lot more because.
But they also didn't do anything very racy.
But they shared a bed.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
They didn't.
They had beds next to each other.
They had separate beds.
Well, they had to at least push them together one night.
Trust, I've been watching a lot of I Love Lucy lately.
Really? I don't remember
they are
that.
separate beds.
Ricky Ricardo just shoots across the room.
But anyways, yeah.
Open up, baby!
Not to get too far into those shows, because we will cover those shows in the future. We did not get too far ahead.
You know why this show is so horny, though? It's because Dick York is just so handsome.
Yeah, he is.
He's a handsome man.
He looks kind of weird.
I think he's super creepy looking.
Yeah,
I was getting angry that they thought they could replace him with Dick Sargent.
Well, they had to, though. I mean, he was really sick.
There was a lot behind that, and
well, that's because he went to play JR.
No, so what really Dick York had
J.R. Ewing?
Yes, on Bonanza. He left for Bonanza, right?
J.R. Ewing is not Bonanza. J.R. Ewing is Dallas.
And he wasn't on Bonanza.
He wasn't on Bonanza.
Are you having a stroke? What the fuck are you talking about?
Somebody get Gordon the smelling salts. I want to make sure he's okay.
Wasn't there a sitcom or is it I Dream of Jeannie?
Definitely not a sitcom.
Gordo, hold on,
guy
pause.
from I Dream of Jeannie?
Stop. Drink some water. Let's go over a few things. JR is from Dallas. Dick York's not in that. Okay?
Okay.
Bonanza. Dick York's not in that. Now you just randomly blurted out I Dream of Jeannie. Dick York is also not in that.
But Dick Sargent was, right?
It's Larry Hagman from I Dream of Jeannie who plays J.R. Ewing.
Okay. So,
All right, so there is a connection to what Gordon
There
was
is a
saying.
connection.
So
No, there
apparently-
isn't, because he added a show at the end to make
Yeah,
a connection that
I
had
mean,
nothing to do with anything.
I can
Brothers
see where
mind-
the synapses were trying to fire.
Dick York left Bewitched so the guy from I Dream of Jeannie could go on to do something else.
correct.
Okay. All right.
So that he could make a show called Dallas 15 years later.
Dick York got in an accident filming something like prior to this, and he had like a I think it was a back injury. And basically that back injury and through all the pain, he developed substance and alcohol problems. But a combo of the two, like his physical ailments mixed with that, got him to a point where he could no longer work on the show.
Yeah, he was bedridden for almost 2 years. He was like just out of it, and that's why they changed it. To,
And that accident happened before Bewitched, even?
Before Bewitched even started. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So what substances? Like he was on painkillers from that, and he just got addicted.
It was kind of a combo of the two, but like the injury became so bad that he just physically couldn't get through episodes. And there'd be a lot of times where they'd have him sit down in scenes or cut around it, or they'd have Darrin-less episodes where he wasn't like in it, or they like figure a way to like kind of splice him in a scene. So it was getting
I
tricky.
remember
for
episodes
them.
where he'd be like on a work trip. He'd
Yeah,
like
and
out
then
of town
there's-
on a work
Yeah.
trip, and they could write him out.
And they would do things like, and then when this happened and the switch to, Dick Sargent, there was like this backlash that happened, but it's like, if you understood what was really going on, like what were their options? It was either they just go on with a new person or they have to end the show because there's really no road at which he could have stayed on. But
Also,
he
for
was
as corny
great.
as this is, I don't know if this show would have survived a divorce subplot.
It would have been weird. You know what? He kind of
and
gave
Dora
me
kill him.
it made me think that like that movie, and I didn't see the movie, so it doesn't really like, I can't like speak out of turn too much because I don't remember like how it plotted. I know he's not playing Darrin proper. It's not like a remake, but they did get, was Nicole Kidman, right?
Yep.
Who gives off a similar vibe. And I think the Darrin character probably should have been Jim Carrey. I think he actually would have did a really good job in that role. He
Wait,
had,
who
like,
did
a
Nicole
similar
Kidman
enough
play?
Samantha.
Samantha.
Wow, so didn't she just play Lucy
Recently,
in that
yeah.
movie?
Did she?
Wow,
Wow,
I think
don't
she
watch
just did like just this year.
Don't watch
Yeah.
that movie if you don't want their relationship ruined forever.
Well, I don't think anybody thought that their relationship was fucking
Oh, yeah. I was
sunshine.
going to say, again, I don't want to talk too
Yeah.
much about I Love Lucy, but they notoriously had a very bad falling out at the end.
I
And if you
imagine
know-
we'll have
if-
to cover Lucy at some point.
Yeah. I was going
All
to
of the
get
Lucy
into it more.
shows.
But that's
Or
crazy
Month
that
of
she has
Lucy.
played Samantha Stevens and Lucille Ball, which is pretty wild.
But who was she on Dallas?
She also
was
played
JR.
JR. Yeah, she played
She's
JR.
the
as
one
well.
that shot JR.
But she was Jim Ross, not the other JR.
Flopper!
What a slobber knocker.
Well, we made it about 10 minutes before I mentioned wrestling. so-
Yeah, let's go over some normal stuff real quick. I want to go over some of the scores. IMDb has a rating for the show at 7.6. Rotten Tomatoes, no critic score because of how old it is. Audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for Bewitched was only a 41% for like the show as a whole, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, so you said this went 240 something episodes over 8
Yeah.
seasons? That's
6, I
crazy.
think.
The show
Yeah.
blew up.
Yeah.
This is part of that. There was a time where, and this show was a big reason why I Dream of Jeannie, which Gordo mentioned earlier for no reason, even came to be. And it was like this, that was kind of like almost a carbon copy. Even, the Witch to a Genie, it was all kind of based
You
on
crazy?
this show.
One's a genie, the other's a witch.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that stuff, this was also at the same time as the Addams Family, the Munsters, like this sci-fi type of show. These all happened like all at the same time. These were all like right around the same year or so when they all came out. This was like the new fad, basically.
I like how at one point in the 60s they were just like, you know what? Regular life sucks. Let's make witches and genies and monsters and just
Right.
run with it.
That's when American television went to their spooky dookie phase.
Yeah.
Well, that's when American people got into their drug phase.
And also the
Also
war phase.
true,
I was just gonna say that. Like, one of the funny things about this show to me, and I have another point to reference to that later, but think of how different the world was in 1964 when this started, and to how different the world was in 1972 when this ended. Like 64, like through all of that, we get into Vietnam. You get the whole
gonna
hippie
say,
movement. You get a totally radical change in Hollywood and how things are made, and different mentality on sort of everything in the world. And you basically go from this being like digga 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 into like Edith there. Like, it's just like worlds apart in like 7 years. I don't feel like the world moves that quickly anymore. I was going to say, when we bring up the mother at one point, the mother was born in the year 1900 and she died in the year 1974. Like, she was born 12 years before the Titanic happened, and she died in Sweet Home Alabama was blasting on the radio. Like, that's a fucking crazy time frame to think about living in.
I forget where I was watching this, but there was something that pulled up like the other day I was watching. It was just talking about the decade changes, and shows like Happy Days came out in the 70s about something in the 50s. That 70s show came out in the 90s about a show in the 70s. And that 20-year gap was enough to be like, wow, look at this old world that is
Look
so
how
different.
it is.
If a show came out right now about the turn of the century, early 2000s, it wouldn't look like much, other than a few cultural references. Visually, you wouldn't get a lot out of it other than looking at old technology.
I don't know
Think
about
that,
that.
though. You think that.
You feel like that, but like we wearing
If-
fucking giant baggy pants, like
Not in
Jenkos
2000 anymore. That was already dying down by like after
No,
the late
2000
90s.
was the height of it.
Wasn't.
I don't know,
2000,
I think
we
it
were
was
what?
dying down a little bit. I mean, when did the first iPhone come out? Because I feel like that's the time frame that looks exactly the
Like
same.
I want to say
seven-
like
07?
2007, yeah, or no, maybe a little before that. Hold on.
Yeah, it's somewhere between.
For reference,
06 and
guys,
08.
I'll just say this. We are a year out from our 20th
Yeah, June
year
of
reunion,
07.
right? So think about when by the year we graduated and the stuff we were doing, like it visually and stuff like that, and how different the world looked versus now. Other than technology stuff, style was a little different, of course, but like the difference between when we graduated to now versus like the mid 70s to the mid 90s, I mean, those are different planets.
No, because we're now at the point where we're old, right?
But that doesn't mean anything about
yes,
the
it
world
does,
in
because
general.
you saw the gradual change to what it is now, so you don't think that it's anything different. Oh,
He's a
wasn't
good-
that
yeah, he's
different?
got
I
a
actually
point.
agree. I agree with Gordo.
No, I'm saying
You
look
didn't get
back
to witness
that time.
this. You didn't get
Yeah.
to witness the 70s to the 90s. You did
Yeah.
get to witness the 2000s to the 2020s, or you know what I mean. So you were in it, so you don't experience the change as much.
Then why don't
Like-
they do cultural pieces anymore that are only 20 years back? Why do
Because
the
Hollywood
90s have a
sucks.
signature look? The 80s have a signature look.
I'm
the
with Jay
70s,
on this
60s,
one.
and
I don't think
50s.
20 years ago looks that different. Or I want to say at least 2007, once the smartphone era kicked off, I think everything has looked a variety of the same since then. I mean, like, guys, look, iPhone 15's coming out. This one's now titanium. Be like, okay, it's the same thing, just
Yeah, but now you got
updated.
kids dressing as hipsters now and all that other stuff.
There are still actually hipsters. They still
Yeah.
exist.
But
They're not
I'm
dressed
saying
as-
Look
you
at us,
Get them
there's
all
like-
the time.
There's 5 of us here in this show.
What are you doing? What does that mean? I'm so confused. Hey, what are you talking about?
We're hipsters.
We're talking about
Hey,
like
fuck you! I am not.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
You
There's
just said
5
that
of
there's
us.
hipsters now, and I said, yeah, we are the hipsters.
maybe
Yeah,
Joe.
like my hip hurts.
Hey.
No, Joe's just quirky. Anyways,
He's a quirkster.
Quirkster.
That sounds like a villain they would summon on Are You Afraid of the Dark? I don't want to call that.
I don't want to get into another pivot because I definitely want to cover the show and there's going to be a lot to talk about. But I will say, since you mentioned Are You Afraid of the Dark, I finally made the jump. We talked about this. I finally got Paramount Plus, and like every Nickelodeon program from when we were
I
kids
just
was
gotta
on
do
it.
it.
They're missing a ton of episodes.
Take what you can get, though. You know what I mean? Like from where we were. I wonder if that's content based or
With Salute Your Shorts, all of a sudden Pinsky's just there. They don't even have his first episode. They have the part 1 when Dina and Budnick fall in love, but they don't have part 2. So that just ends.
interesting. Interesting they cut episodes out, but and that's weird because Pinsky's first episode was episode 1 of season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes in, he like sneaks in the salami and everything, right? And he gets
That's
out
the
to
whole,
be-
it's the whole thing. Like, because that's the pivot. No more Michael, and then we get Pinsky in his place.
I was very upset.
But yeah, as far as Bewitched goes, I really think we should get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. And a quick plug right before we do that, S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to all our social medias, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter. Probably Twitter once again in the future, S1E1 pod there. Hit us up. We like talking to you guys, so make sure to follow us, message us, let us know shows you want to hear. But yeah, Bewitched. So right off the bat, the intro, I kind of like how they intro this show, but it is also something that I think works in the 60s but wouldn't work today. And basically this long narration where we're seeing kind of the build up to what's going on, and it, instead of having to have like a origin story per se, they just kind of take a couple minutes where they're like, hey, here's the layout and we're just going to explain it to you and now enter the world.
I
disagree,
though,
'cause-
that intro confused me because it doesn't say how much time passed. So, like, he met this girl and married her. So, by the way this episode goes, it almost seems like he met her and married her that fucking day.
It feels like they met and married very
Yeah.
quickly by when we meet Sophia later, but I
That's-
will
that's
say,
what-
Jay, to
yeah,
your
that's
point,
why.
I think Arrested Development is a very good example of a modern
Yeah,
sitcom
you know what, that's
that
true,
uses
that's
the
true.
narration.
But that's parodying other sitcoms with that.
That's true, but it worked, right? Like, imagine that show without the narration, it would be nowhere near as funny.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I guess that's a good point. That one didn't come to mind. But yeah, the whole way that it went about it, I thought was kind of good. Maybe just because it's like that old style, the way that it was shot there. So I'm looking at it and it feels very, this is a show from the 60s that feels very much like it's from the 60s. And
The narrator for
Agreed.
this, too, uncredited, is the actor Jose Ferrar, who is Bob Morton from RoboCop's dad, Miguel Ferrar, who passed away a couple years ago. The main
Nice.
dad guy from RoboCop.
Yeah,
Oh.
he was great. He was in a bunch of things.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Farrar. I just like saying it.
I'm cashing you out, Bob.
we basically see that the whole story of them meeting, falling in love, and it's just kind of, Joe, you kind of mentioned it's a little sexually driven. Basically, we just see them making out everywhere. Like, they're so smitten that, you know, the two meet and they're just, I don't know, kissing everywhere they are.
It's like, hey, let's pull over by these train tracks and kiss. Like, let's neck right now.
I stand by what I said. She probably couldn't take her hands off Dick York because he's a handsome man.
Or
Can't
York
keep
stick.
your hands off the dick sometimes, yeah.
It's such a Samantha thing.
I was reading when he passed away, and they were like, he died of like lung cancer or something, and they were like, he's a 3-pack-a-day smoker his whole life, and all
He
I could
smokes
think
in
of,
this episode.
he smoked so much in this episode, but can you imagine it? I was like, how could you smoke 60 cigarettes in a day? And then I was like, oh wait, everybody was drunk back then, and you could smoke anywhere you wanted.
Oh,
It was probably
yeah.
hard to not smoke 3 packs
Smoke
a day.
in the hospital.
Yeah, like, my wife's having a kid. So fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And just think about, like, when we all smoked, like, if someone just had to pull out a cigarette, you wanted one of yours. Like,
Yeah.
So if everyone's smoking all the time, you're smoking extra because you're pulling out your cigarettes.
That
It
was when
still
we were
happens,
kids.
by the
When
way.
we were
Like
kids and we all hung out at my house, there was a point in time where all of us were cigarette smokers at the same time. And it was awful because it was just nonstop chain smoking.
yeah,
You
it's
always
disgusting.
smelled like smoke, yeah.
What did you guys think about this overall look and style? Like I said, it feels very 60s. So it's weird. I think like to walk into it now, there's like a nostalgia from watching it as kids, but just seeing how it looks and feels now, do you guys take issue with to watch an older show? Does it bother you guys to watch like something so old that looks so different now?
No.
I like
No.
it. I've always liked the older aesthetic of shows like this.
It does. I wouldn't say it bothers me. Yeah.
Because it still has the nostalgia. Like, it was old when we were young. It was coming back via Nick at Night, but we all grew up watching that, so it's not weird. Like, it's not like watching something old and shitty. It's like something we experienced. It's
Yeah.
no different than
Yeah.
going back to I Salute Your Shorts, like we were just
That-
talking about.
That's a very good point. Like, I wonder how this would play. Like, if you just so somebody who's like, I don't know, say half our age, right? So you got somebody who was like 19 years old or 18 years old or whatever, and you were like, they probably didn't grow up with Nick at Night and seeing this, right? Like, it just wasn't their generation, and you were like, here's Bewitched, what do you think? I bet they would have a very different opinion, both from time being different, but also not
Yeah.
having the nostalgia glasses on it, you know?
My best example is when we cover an old show that I haven't seen, I usually think they suck. Just because I don't have that familiarity. And then we watch it and I'm just bored because it looks bad and all this
So
other
do you
stuff.
feel though that the nostalgia of watching this when you were younger is the only reason you're not feeling that way? You think if you were on fresh eyes that the pacing and style of this show would bother you more?
I don't know. It's hard to say, but I do think I don't know if I would have enjoyed this as much if I didn't watch it throughout my childhood.
Because we always say at the top of the episode, the goal is always to watch it with, without any, memories of watching in the past, but it's almost completely unavoidable. At times,
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah.
I will say that for a random thing, like if you show me a movie I've never seen before from 1962 and it's a great movie, I can get lost in a movie so easy that I never even think about what
Sometimes
it's made or
movies
how
are
old it
easier
is.
than shows. I
Shows
think
are
sometimes
harder
I find
for sure.
if there's a show from this same era that I didn't really watch back then in this random episodes on, I have a harder time. Just like, oh, My Three Sons is on or something like that, and I'm like,
Right, yeah.
I just never really watched as a kid, so it doesn't resonate with me the same way.
I wonder if stuff we did watch as a kid though, like what's the dolphin show? Flipper.
Flipper.
I would love to see, because I don't remember really liking Flipper very much as a kid, but it was on and there wasn't that many.
Funny you should say that. I have Flipper on my list. It's on my personal list of things I want to eventually pick because of how absurd it is.
Is it a sitcom?
It's not a sitcom.
No,
It
it's not a
was.
sitcom.
It was absolutely not.
It wasn't even funny.
Well, a lot of shows we do cover aren't funny either.
yeah,
and
we'll
we
find
always-
out.
Yeah, but it wasn't funny on purpose. It was supposed to be
Lassie
like,
a
oh, look,
sitcom?
this is so whimsical. Look,
Yeah,
this dolphin can do
it's
things.
It's in the same vein as Lassie.
Yeah, I don't feel like
Lassie
Lassie's
was-
funny.
Lassie was more dramatic, I feel.
Yeah,
So
and
Mr.
Flipper's
Ed
like
was
the
funny.
same
Mr.
thing.
Ed's
yeah.
the comedy with the animal for
Yeah,
sure.
Mr. Ed is the one.
Wilbur.
So anyways, this whole narration in the beginning and the montage and everything we're seeing, like I said, it's laying out this whole story. The big reveal at the end, obviously, for those of you listening, pretty much anyone knows, but we find out that Samantha is a witch. And you see her kind of sitting in her little chair of her bridal suite right after getting married, alone, and she kind of uses her sorcery or whatever to bring her hairbrush over to her.
Can I just say, real talk, my first TV crush.
Elizabeth
She uses
Montgomery?
smoke.
Yeah,
Oh
she
wait,
has
Dick
a good one.
Great-
She's a babe.
Dick York, Gordo?
No, not Dick York.
That was mine.
I was gonna say, you've said he was handsome 50 times already. No, it's just that whole Elizabeth Montgomery had this really nice girl next door vibe. She was very charming. I thought she was, a great casting for this role, and I thought about that because you needed someone who was a witch but had that whole nothing about her gives a witch-like vibe, which is what makes it work.
Yeah,
There's
like
this innocence to her too. Like when she's at the dinner table later, which we'll get into. Like I feel really bad for her when she's getting laid into, and I'm like, this poor girl.
You feel
Yeah.
for her, but it builds her up well. You understand what happens. I will say though, when she talks about her mom and she's like, "You're too young for this," and I don't know how old a witch lives to be, so conversely that could be different. But she's 31 in real life. You're like, she's not a child. She's a grown adult woman. She's a 31-year-old.
Much older than I thought she would have been, actually, yeah.
Witches
Yeah.
live to be 900 years old, so she's practically a teenager.
Amok.
So basically, right after that, we get into the intro of the show. And the intro is a cartoon, very iconic melody for an intro that was supposed to have lyrics.
I
But,
can't believe that this intro copied Aliens in the Family.
I know, right?
So
Better
this is
show. Better show.
Yeah. So the theme song is just that dun, 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 and like I said, there was lyrics attached. You can look them up.
Bewitched. Bewitched.
She's
Yeah.
being a witch. It's
It
Hanna
was
Barbera
Bewitched,
cartoon
Bewitched.
too.
Yeah, in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Motley.
I feel like there was a world at which, this Hanna-Barbera cartoon could have existed in a cartoon version show. If maybe just a little later, but even at the same
I was
time.
going to say a different era, it would have run alongside it as its own thing.
Yeah.
I believe there's some cartoons later on about the daughter, and I think that you get the character of Samantha on the Flintstones a couple times.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a crossover, as best of a crossover that they could do.
Well,
Maybe
of
that's how old
course,
she
yeah.
is. She was alive in the Flintstone times.
Not if you believe that the Flintstones is actually the future.
And the
We'll have a
Jetsons is
folk
the
about-
past.
Yep.
Well,
That's
never mind, it's blown.
famous theory.
I could do an impression of Fred Flintstone, but I don't want to do one as good as noted comedian Joey Gladstone, who does the worst Fred Flintstone impression ever on Full House all the time.
He does everything well. You shut up.
He has everything terrible, including breaking the heart of Alanis.
We don't know all the details.
I like that we know some, though.
Yeah.
I know enough to be like, fuck that guy.
We know enough to know what went on in a theater.
Movie theater. I just want to know what movie it was. You imagine sucking Uncle Joey's dick
Okay,
and,
okay,
The Hunt for Red
okay.
October is on? Like, what's the movie in the background? I need to know.
It was What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Oh, God.
So we cut back.
The other sister.
After the intro, we get back into this bridal suite where we saw Samantha earlier on, the whole thing with the brush coming towards her. And this is when her mother appears. Her mother, also a witch. And she just kind of like, we get that kind of poof out of nowhere. And I actually thought, as far as like the, we'll see it a lot of times. We saw it with the brush. We see it with her just appearing. And they're using like very simple, practical, like effect and things and camera tricks. But I thought everything for the 60s and on not much budget for television, a lot of these effects were pretty good.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
It's clearly people in the background with strings just poking stuff and pulling stuff, and it looks so good. And that's why I would hate this show now, because they would just CGI it to death and try to go too big with it. Like, these are fun and weird and practical and easy.
Well, like Samantha the Teenage Witch, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, they did it mostly with all CGI. We covered that last year.
Yeah, I think it works better here. Except for the cat. The cat looks fine to me.
Well, the cat wasn't CGI. It was a puppet.
Oh,
the cat wasn't CGI.
Not a CGI face. Well, that explains why it looked good.
Yeah.
So the scene with her and her mother, basically it's just, she doesn't approve of this wedding. And a lot of things. She's young. It's a mortal guy. Like, there's just so much going on.
And this is the horniest character of all time, because her real last name is Moorhead.
Okay.
I think you're the horniest character of all time.
Well, Joe saw like an 80-year-old
Anybody
woman.
would laugh
Yeah.
at that, and I'm so glad that most of you did. Oh, Agnes, Moorhead. That's what her husband would say to her, I guess. I don't know.
She
But
assumed...
then he'd be Mr. Moorhead.
That's
Yeah.
not how that works.
Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to take a guy's name.
I mean,
Right.
that's true.
You did in the 60s.
Yeah, you did in the 60s.
True.
Now.
What about the 1460s when Agnes Moorhead was born? I don't know.
She's under the impression that he put Samantha under a spell to convince her to marry him so early. And that's how she found out that he was just a regular man. And so, like, the thought of that it just made it worse to her because she was already upset that her daughter got married young. And then to find out that it was a regular Joe Schmo like us.
You'd think that she would let her mother know that she's getting married.
That's another reason why I think they met and got married right
Like
away,
eloped.
which is weird.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because the mom has no idea, and they're on their honeymoon, so she clearly wasn't invited.
But the mother teleported to her, so she must have known. Like, can you imagine? Like,
Well, that's the stuff that
they're
confuses
necking
me.
And like, she's like, Samantha.
Well, if they have this power to just kind of appear at any time, right? And just kind of summons themselves to where they are. Do they know where they're heading? Or do they just like, I'm going to wherever Samantha is?
Yeah. I think
Oh
the
no,
energy of
Samantha
that-
was scuba diving.
Because- so if she shows up like, oh, at this point she knows she's married, right? That's why she showed up.
and
so,
on
like-
her honeymoon, so things could
So-
be.
Yeah, why did she show up sooner? I guess like it's the one. I guess it's one of the unexplains. You just kind of have to take it for what it is.
Well,
One of
she's
the weird
lucky
things
she
that people
came when
talk
she
about,
did. She's lucky she came when she did. Because if she'd come a little bit later, things would have been hot and steamy.
Yeah, but why didn't she come a month earlier when they're dating, or when she found out they were getting married, or when they were?
Dick
physically
York
getting
was
married?
already coming a month earlier.
You guys are being extra weird now. Now you guys are being extra weird.
I make one cum joke over the entire history of our
Yeah,
show.
but
and
Joe-
I'm extra weird.
Joe hit the quota
Captain
like
Cum
2
over
minutes
there.
into this episode this time.
Joe hit the quota 6 months ago.
Covering one, yeah, but
Oh, it
I
took me
always-
less time than that. Come on.
Every episode there's like a reset, right? We start over again, and then I always try to gauge like how wholesome is the show we're doing. Bewitched, super wholesome. Who's gonna listen to that episode? More wholesome people. Let's not scare them off with too much cum talk. in the
It's a
first
wholesome. I mean, look.
half hour of the show.
It's a wholesome episode, but the whole episode is about the two of them trying to have sex.
No, it's not.
That's not.
Yes,
the
it
end
is
of
not
the
the
episode.
plot
Not
of the
premise of the whole
episode.
episode.
Half
It's
of the
just
He keeps
plot.
coming in. Allow me for a moment, please.
I'm sure he does.
Let me just give my point of view here. She keeps sending him away to the lobby. He keeps coming in. He's ready. They're trying to do it. He wants to go with her upstairs just like last night, but she can't because she has to clean the kitchen. They keep having these moments where they're clearly
Oh, so
talking
two
about
things
her.
that happen 20 minutes apart from each other.
This
and that makes
scene
it the
takes like
whole
7 minutes before we leave this hotel
Right,
room,
but-
so you
but
can't
do you
say that.
think
It's a
that when
third of
she-
the episode.
It's
Do you
not
think
the
this
point
Trying
of the
to
episode.
get into the room, and she keeps sending him back to the
Okay,
lobby.
right,
It's not,
but he's
like-
trying to just get into his room.
Yeah, it's not anything weird.
So they can sleep together for the first time. This whole scene, he keeps bringing that up to her.
Yeah, I know. He's probably, not for nothing, probably has a boner. Like, I don't mean to be weird, but like,
Yes, you do mean to be weird.
but like,
But it's a wholesome boner.
It's one of those. He's trying to get into his room because it's his hotel room, regardless of if they're gonna have sex or not.
he's in his like silk robe. He's ready to roll. Like, he knows what's coming. He's got the champagne. He's like setting the mood.
I'm not denying that it's implied that it's their honeymoon that they would do that, but he's not going up there. This isn't like a horny Frank step by step where he's making it very clear that like I'm about to have some sex. That's not what he's doing.
I read
He's going through
differently.
the lobby. He's at his hotel and he's about to walk into his room, like as you would do regardless. Even if he was by himself, he would try to leave the lobby to go
scene
to his
before
room.
this, we've watched them make out everywhere in the plot of the show.
Yeah,
By a
that's
train,
true.
in a store, in a place.
By the
Well, yeah, no,
radio.
I'm not. Again, I'm not saying that that's not their intent. I'm just saying that that's not how he's playing the scene at this moment. He's like innocently trying to get to his room most of the time. But I want to say, I do like, as we're talking about effects, we keep saying that every time he gets close to his room, there was like 2 or 3 occasions where Agnes, or Endora, right? What's her name?
Endora.
Endora.
Agnes is a real first name.
Yeah, right. So Endora like knows, like senses he's about to walk in and just keeps like, he keeps disappearing and
teleporting.
reappearing back, like teleporting back into the lobby. And that was again where they use kind of just simple camera tricks, right? But every time I thought it looks pretty smooth, to be
They
able to
did a
do
good
that
job.
trick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when
They did
he
a good
arrives
job,
in
but
the
I
lobby,
think
he's in
3
the
times
exact
is too many
position.
times.
I thought it
That's
worked.
too many?
though. It was-
I thought it worked. And you know what's funny how we talk it being 2023 and he keeps getting a new key from the guy. I'm like, that's a physical key. Why do they have so many keys? It's not like now if you lock
Yeah,
out of your
right.
hotel room, they program one of 100 cards.
As somebody who ran a hotel that had physical keys, you have like almost an unlimited supply of those same keys.
People
Just
lose them all
Yeah.
the time, I'm sure, yeah.
I wouldn't give
people
it. I
lose
wouldn't
them.
give him another key after 5 seconds ago. I gave him a key though.
Here's a question about that scene. So he's embarrassed and everyone's looking at him like, look at
Why
this
is he not-
guy.
Going crazy.
But why is he...
Yeah.
He's
He
the
thinks
most
he's drunk.
modest dressed I've ever seen. He's wearing a long robe, pants, shoes, and a long shirt. Everyone's looking at him like, that guy's down here in his fucking
My
pajamas.
God, my pajamas.
So this is where I think we talk about then versus now. Then that was like, oh my God, what is this guy doing in like his underwear, quote unquote? Because you didn't
That's his
dress like
underwear.
that.
Cut to
Yeah.
now, kids are going to school in their pajamas.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's fine. When we were in high school, there used to be like, remember they'd like make announcements like, you can't come to school in your pajamas, which I support because that's insane. Put some fucking clothes on, but
No, but I'm just saying that in that time, that was like, oh my God, he's wearing his on, he's going to bed. Like, that's not decent.
I mean,
The
this
thing
is a
is, though,
time too where you put a suit on to go on a plane.
Exactly. You put a suit on to go fishing at this time.
Where you
I
can
don't
smoke
think
on
I'd go
that
that
plane.
far. Andy Griffith maybe says otherwise on that one. That's
true.
Gomer Pyle.
There is a point where he finally does make it to his room. His mother-in-law disappears right beforehand, and this is when, he's seeing his new wife for the first time again, entering the room, and, maybe at this point he is ready for a little boom boom. But he is convinced, by the way, the whole time that it's the champagne is why he's like, keeps finding himself in the wrong area. He thinks
It's really
like,
funny because later in this episode you find out that he is a man who likes to drink, and he likes to drink bourbon. So he's
Yeah,
like,
he
I only
drinks-
have
he
one
drinks
glass
an
of
old-fashioned.
champagne. It's like, wait, what's going on with you? You have a crazy tolerance.
I feel like to go back to all the shows of this era, wasn't it just always business guys who just drank scotch? Wasn't that like every show? They just old guys just drinking
They come home,
scotch?
they have their decanter.
That's still every show.
Well, I think it's a blue collar, white collar thing, right? Because if you look at like, those guys were having scotch, and like regular working guys would come home and be like, "Did you get me my beer?" Like that's like a sitcom dad from the same period if he worked at like the docks, you know.
No, that's Archie Bunker.
Well, not just Archie. That was a lot of the dads at that time.
Were any of you ever scotch drinkers? I never enjoyed it personally.
I tried it.
I love
Negative.
bourbon, but I hate scotch.
So when I cleaned out my grandmother's basement years ago, there was like 20 different bottles of scotch down there, and I tried them all. And I'm not a scotch person at all. There was only one that I actually enjoyed, and I looked it up, and it's like the bottom shelf one today. And I was like, oh, this is my favorite. That's so strange. I think it's called White.
It's cheap.
Well, that's good because
White Horse, I think it's called.
I don't know what happened, like where the eras just changed, where scotch was like the man's drink of choice, and then it kind of fell out of favor.
I don't know.
Scotch is like Taco Bell, where like you could take one sip of it, and then 2 days later you'll burp, and you'll still taste scotch. Like I feel like if you eat Taco Bell, you burp.
I had
Taco
no
Bell
idea
for a
where you were
couple
going with
days.
that.
Me neither.
No.
You
But does
found
that
a
make
way to make
sense?
you found a way to make it make sense, but in the moment I was like, we're on for a ride here.
I remember back.
It's like Taco Bell. You shit your brains out later that night. It's like...
Yeah, I just meant that the flavor stays with you. I'd much rather burp up a taco though than scotch 2 days later. Oh, it stays with
For
you.
me, that's tequila. Tequila, I'll burp up the taste for days.
Yeah, I'm not a tequila guy either. It just tastes like
Yeah,
butter
no,
to me.
not at all.
That's why I don't drink it. It's because of that reason.
Darrin and Samantha are talking in the room because, she's like, we need to talk before they can get on to anything else. And this is when she finally tells him, like, I'm a witch. And he's like, what? And she says, like, no, like, I'm a witch. I'm a real broom riding, house haunting, cauldron stirring witch. Which is weird because even in her portrayal, right, through this episode, or even kind of in the future, like, and not to get ahead, right? But to say, like, broom riding, house haunting, cauldron stirring, like, that's not really how anyone was ever portrayed in that show.
Except for
I know,
the
but she's saying these are the stereotypes. This is what you'd know a witch as. I'm one of those. She's not
right, but,
Yeah,
but I feel like
she
that's
doesn't do
also what
that
they told
stuff.
Hannah and Barbera, where they're like, "Hey, go draw some cartoon about a blonde lady witch," and they were like, "All right, sure." And
I feel
they
like for
made
the
her,
cartoon
you
that
know-
makes sense. I'm just saying she's almost validating, like, these are all true things about me as a witch. The way
No,
she
because
says
her
it.
mother and her were talking, and her mother, in response to her marrying a mortal, said that they don't understand witches and they think that we're just broom riding.
Yeah, we
cauldron
only work on
stirring.
Halloween. And
We only work on Halloween.
And I think she did that because she knew that was the only way he was going to understand what she meant.
yeah,
And she was
Yep.
right
Yeah.
because that's what he thought of them.
Yeah, because right away he's like, "That tracks. I get you."
It's not Halloween. He goes, oh, it's not Halloween. To prove her point.
And his way of, like, countering is like, hey, listen, I have an aunt who thinks she's a lighthouse.
I love
Right.
this story, and I love that this joke rides the whole episode.
Yeah. And it was funny the way he explained it. Like, she was just like, it was like whenever it rains, she just, like, climbs up on the roof.
And yells at sailors.
it's kind of funny. He's okay with his wife being crazy, but not okay with her being a witch.
Yeah, he's like, "I was fine if I just thought you were a lighthouse. I could handle that. Being a witch is a step too far."
He has a lot of good facial reactions, too. I remember there was a point where she was talking to her mother earlier. It's like, oh, I thought you said she was in India. It's like, yeah, but she just dropped in for a minute. And he just like, what?
Is she
like-
still here?
Those moments where, like, you can see in his face him realizing things, or like you can read his thoughts through his facial expressions. I think
He's a good
he did
face
a really
actor.
good job of that.
He lends himself to a good cartoon face too.
Yeah, I always thought it was funny. And again, not to jump ahead, I always thought, when I look back, not as much, but as a kid, I thought Dick York and Dick Sargent looked similar enough that it wasn't that crazy of a transition.
Seeing them now,
No,
though,
not
I
me.
agree. Yeah.
That's why it angered me. Is they look so different. Even
And I
back
think
then.
also we watched, the version we watched the colorized version of episode 1, even though it originally aired in black and white, because that's just what's out there now. I always kind of in my head, and I don't know when the exact transition was, but as a kid, it was almost like Dick Sargent came in when the show turned to color, and Dick York was in the black and white era. So it almost is like why you didn't think as much about it, because
Yeah.
the
I think
world
Dick
looked a
York,
little different through color. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Definitely.
primarily
contributed.
only saw Dick York in black and white episodes. So it was like to turn the color on almost, to have someone look a little different, kind of like it changes it anyways. So you're already looking at it through like a new lens.
You know
One
what
note
was
to the
bothered-
colorized thing that I thought was interesting too is, I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this after I'm watching the episode, I'm taking my notes, and I'm like, oh, when they colorized her, they kind of make her in that opening scene look like Jackie O with that pink outfit. It was like very much like the Jackie O of the time outfit, you know, the pillbox
yeah.
sort of pink hat thing, or whatever. And then I found out that the initial rehearsals for this pilot were actually on November 11th, 1963, and they had to cancel them because that's the day Kennedy got shot.
Right. And wasn't it the creator of the show, or it was her real life husband, Elizabeth Montgomery's like husband, who was like one of the producers and stuff, was friends with him.
Yeah, I think something like, so it was like an issue, right? Like your friend, and I mean, like,
It was a
I don't think
cultural,
it would
like, yeah, the country like probably shut down for a day at the time, but it was also, they happened to be friends on top of that.
I don't mean this to sound dark or morbid, but I don't think we've had, I don't think this generation would stop the way that the generation, like the whole world stopped in 1963 when the president was shot, and everyone was like, what do we do? I feel like
Well, who was
politics have
the
become
last-
so much more divisive now, where like, if it was Trump, if it was Biden,
Was
I mean,
he
even
the
if it was
last president to be
people liked him,
assassinated, though?
People hated him. Last one to get
Yes.
assassinated is JFK, yeah.
So I feel
someone
like it's
shot
tough to-
Reagan,
Yeah.
but they were not a good enough shot, unfortunately.
Yeah, but so I feel
Somebody
like it's a tough
shot
comparison.
JR.
Somebody did shoot JR.
But is that so? It's so tough to say. I feel like that would be a big one, like at least for the next couple days. I think.
I mean,
things
to
would
make the
change
news
more.
cycle interesting for sure, but I just don't think like the world, like when you hear about it, right, and like Parkland and all this stuff, it's like the whole world stopped and cried, pretty much. The whole country stopped and cried. Now people hate the person they don't like so much that there would be like people crying and people cheering at the same time. It'd be a very weird, surreal thing to view. I mean, I don't want to.
It would have to
view
be
that,
like
but
like someone would have to shoot Tom Hanks, and then the world would all be sad.
I hope that never happens, but boy, would I be crying.
See, it's like so. It has to be public and on TV, and
And then we would hang that person for that thing they did.
So to go back into the scene too, we see some more of these like effects that are being used. There's a point where we brought up that he's a smoker and he smokes in the episode, and we have the moving ashtray. That's like he keeps turning like Ash's cigarette, and it just keeps sliding from side to side of the table.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good one.
she lights the lighter for him.
Yeah, and then the drinks, like he's like, "Oh, I need a drink," and like all of a sudden, a highball appears in his hand, and then he there was the one time he was like accepting of the magic too. He's like, "How about an old fashioned?" And it changes to an old fashioned.
I was right there with him with that mentality as somebody who just always is drinking liquids in general, not just alcohol. Like I'm just always drinking. They're like, I don't want to get up and go get more ice. Like, ooh, that's easy.
Trying to know what's in a highball.
It's ginger ale and
Ginger ale
whiskey.
and whiskey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a simple two ingredient cocktail.
I always like wonder, like, why is that a trope in these shows? Like, you find this all powerful being, but it's the one guy who's like, "Oh, I don't want magic." Like, wouldn't anyone be
right?
excited? I have a witch as a wife. I can get anything I want. Same with I Dream of Genie. They do the same thing. No genie, no wishes. It's like,
Yeah, you have a genie or a witch, and you could be like, give me all the riches in the world, build a giant house for us. And she's like, I'm going inside my bottle, you're an asshole. This is confusing for everybody involved.
Well, I mean, you look at it, and it's the way they do this stuff too. It is like this old kind of the old tropes of like where you fit in a marriage and the woman's role and a man's role, and it was just like, oh please, like it's so weird to see it now because the world doesn't work that way anymore. And so when for us to like, a couple of you guys are married and the other couple of you that are in relationships and me who's doomed to roam the earth alone forever, like, talk to women from time to time. It's like, but like when you talk
Be
to
the Incredible
a woman
Hulk now, where you gonna end this episode just sadly hitchhiking away from your room.
But it's one of those like that. Those roles don't exist anymore. So he finds out she's a witch, and it's more like, but that means you can't be a good housewife. How are you going to cook and clean if you're a witch?
you get real
And she's like-
dated here.
And it's like, please, I'll be the best housewife ever.
And at that
I'll learn
point-
to cook and I'll clean. And it's like, I'm like, this is so weird.
She
because
says you need to learn how to keep house. You're like,
Yes.
bud,
Yeah.
bud.
Is that your wife or is she hired help? Like that's
I
the
know.
thing. Like,
Well, I mean,
get
that's
the
that's
world.
really just the times. That's all it
It
was.
was.
Yeah.
Also,
It was-
side note, just to go back real quick before we get too far away from it, I had to look it up because it didn't sound right. A highball is not just a whiskey and a ginger ale. A highball is the type of drink. So, like a vodka soda, a gin and tonic, a whiskey and ginger ale, those are highballs. They're all called
Isn't it a
highballs.
glass?
How do you order a highball then?
Yeah, whenever I've had me growing up, I mean, when I learned what a highball was from my dad, it was whiskey and ginger ale. So that's what I've always just associated with.
Yeah, it's referred to as a cocktail style. It says the highball is one of the most popular cocktail styles worldwide. The category, which in its purest form is merely a spirit plus a carbonated ingredient, includes popular drinks such as vodka soda, gin and tonic, scotch and soda.
Hey, I drink highballs.
Yeah, I
Red-
drink highballs too. Dave,
Red
if
Bull
Dave's
and
listening, our friend
Jaeger?
Dave from In a Pick Pod, who is a professional bartender, I would like his opinion on this. If I walked into the bar and you were attending bar and I said, "Give me a highball," what would you
Just
make?
get one of all of them in front of you.
You're gonna be so drunk later, man.
You get a flight deck. Yeah, I've always known it as whiskey and ginger ale, and I know that they make glasses that are like
highball glasses, yeah.
glasses. So
I assume in this era, if that's all that means, it's scotch and soda. That's probably what all these old guys are drinking.
They got
It's just
the
scotch and
spray
soda.
thing.
Yeah, with the
I always
bottle.
wanted one of those guns.
Yeah.
What about one of Joe's favorite drinks? Whiskey and water.
It's whiskey and soda. It's bourbon and soda. It is a classic drink, and it is delicious.
It's a highball.
It is a highball.
And it is a highball.
I got a highball for you.
The low ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Gordo making that joke right there, I think.
Oh, well, that's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
But
because
this,
it's so big they flop them near the ground.
Right. So yeah, this scene concludes with this kind of argument. Still, the whole her promising that she'll be good to him, and they even talk about maybe getting a marriage counselor, but the idea of I'll be a perfect housewife for you. Please just give me a chance.
You know what I'm just noticing now? It's like, I watched it earlier, but she's famous for the nose wiggle. She really doesn't do it in the pilot.
We
You
get
did
it.
it once that I saw.
Did it
Yeah, you
once.
get one.
Yeah.
Like, that's how she does all of her spells later in the show. She does the nose shake.
Right.
And it goes.
But that's the thing. Pilots are figuring themselves out, and it does happen in this episode. I think if it didn't happen, it'd be one thing, but we do get one later on, and maybe it depends on the level of witchery you need. But the next scene from there, we see Darrin with a buddy of his, and he's talking to him like at the bar, and he's kind of explaining to him what's going on, and the whole time like his buddy's like trying to give his buddy relationship advice, but he's giving him like almost scripted, I'm not listening to you advice. So as Darren's trying to tell him details, this guy's just going on and just kind of giving him the generic advice, not listening to him at all the whole time.
Well,
Whose tag
he
is his
keeps
best
saying,
friend,
my wife
too.
is a witch, and all of them are thinking like they mean like she's a bitch. Like,
Yeah, everybody
She's a horrible
tracks
person.
that through this, yeah. I also love the device of the episode now is we get a few different scenes that are very short and very funny. Like, they don't dwell on the reactionary day he's having. Like, they just quickly go through, like, this is all he's doing in one day and trying to figure it all out. And I think it's funnier for, like, how quick some of these interactions are.
Yeah, like the doctor. He's like,
Yeah.
that's what you called me here for?
Well, yeah, he's
Get some
talking to the
rest.
doctor. That was the next scene. Yeah, he's talking to the doctor, and the same thing. Like I guess in his credit, big news was just dropped on him, right? If we were to live in the world that Darrin is living in, and you find out that your new bride is a witch, I guess like at least he's open to figuring this out. But he is asking everyone under the sun like for advice, and whether it be friends and doctors, like I guess you got to kind of go through it.
it is kind of messed up that she waited for him to put the ring on it and then told him.
When's a good time to tell that? I mean, there's like that thing with all types of things before you meet someone, right? When do you marry? When do you mention I was married before? When do you mention you have kids? When do you mention of certain physical ailments and things like that? Or it's like how long do you drop the I'm a witch thing? How many dates in are you supposed to be? Because it sounds like they were
No.
too preoccupied kissing until they actually were physically married.
So then he's got to be okay with it.
He signed up
Because-
for it.
Yeah, he did.
But he
And
didn't
again,
sign
But
up
that's the
for
thing.
it.
He didn't sign up for it.
No,
didn't
but he
know
signed
until
up for
after
better
he
or worse, and which might be better, which
Yeah.
might be worse, but he signed up for it.
In my opinion, which is better?
Yeah,
I agree.
I
But-
agree too.
But I think it should have been disclosed upon. That's the thing. It should have been mentioned.
Samantha, kill my enemies.
Yeah,
I would be the best ad man in town.
you could have anything. Like, clearly, like, she can clean your house. You know,
But that's
like she
not
does later
his.
on,
That's not his
because
thing.
he's
That's
an idiot.
Yeah,
a
he's an
fucking
idiot, and he
idiot.
wants to stick to like the terrible standards of the time. Instead
Yeah.
of his wife just being like, "Boop, needoo, house is clean," and be like, "Oh, awesome, let's go eat dinner." Like that's
who'd he
the
marry?
move.
Mork from Orc?
No.
I mean, I think it's more he just wants to believe his life is normal and what normal was at that time. So,
Yeah, the standard of normal at the time.
but yeah, at the end of the day, is it a big deal if your wife twitches her nose and dinner's ready? Like,
Yeah, it does seem like a weird overreaction, especially it's just like, she's gorgeous and you'll never have to do
Yeah,
a
right.
chore in your life again because like just go fucking live it up. Quit being a
Think
bitch
of how
about
good.
it.
Think of how good this would be. Darrin, I made dinner. Ooh, great. What are we having? Eggplant parm. You son of a
Ugh.
chicken parm. My wife, I love you.
so you're supposed to be excited that she ruined dinner and she had
No,
a
she doesn't
delicious
ruin dinner.
eggplant
She
parm?
can churn that disgusting eggplant parm into a delicious chicken parm with a tiny
Or-
little nose twitch.
Or she could turn it to poop.
Or what's for dinner? I don't know, literally whatever you
Whatever
want.
the fuck you want.
At
She can
any
make
time,
Grandpa Joe get
anywhere.
out of bed.
She could,
She's like, we go for dinners. I've been feeling cabbage water.
I just want to catch up a few people. And for those of you who might be newer to us and listening, this might be one of your first episodes. First off, welcome and thank you for listening. Unfortunately, a couple of the guys on this show are children, and they won't eat eggplant because they're giant man babies.
I love
No, it's 'cause
vegetables.
it's
They are
fucking
you're
gross.
missing
It's
out.
the bastard parm.
it's not.
It's not.
That would be turkey parm.
It's the second best part.
Everybody pause. Please, everybody stop. This argument
not
is
wrong.
over. Gordo, pardon me. Turkey parm?
You could parm anything. That'd be
We've had
like
the
if I-
argument that you could parm anything, but like that's the first thing that came to mind.
We said that's the bastard
I think it's a
parm.
great argument, Gordo. Don't let them get you down on this one because it's the closest. You could very easily parm a turkey. Turkey breast, like a chicken
Yeah.
breast.
Turkey
Do it.
parm would be the closest to your beloved chicken parm.
Oh,
It's
what
true.
if I
Wouldn't
like
be.
chicken and I don't like
So the
turkey?
question is, would you eat eggplant or turkey parm?
You can't bread turkey, though.
Why can't you?
Because it's dry and icky.
Because it'd be bad. Yeah. I would say pork parm would be closer, because you can bread a pork chop.
Yeah, it's true. It's the other white
You
meat.
can. Why can't you bread a turkey breast?
Because it would be
You could
bad
bread
tasting.
a turkey breast. You could bread anything.
Italian breadcrumbs on a turkey breast? What's wrong with
Sure.
you people?
Sure, you never had
Just like how putting cheese and sauce on just about anything will make it taste good, putting
Except for
breadcrumb and
eggplant.
egg and frying almost anything makes it taste good as well.
You know what? I'm gonna make you guys eggplant
I'm-
parm one of
No,
these
I'm not
days.
eating it.
That's
I'm gonna make you guys parm. Why don't we have a parm roulette?
I like to see you make me do anything. I will
No,
not
we
eat
need to
that.
have. Jay came up with a good name. We need to have a Parmageddon, and we need to do a testing and go through all the parms. And you
I'm
guys
not eating
need to
the
try the fucking eggplant parm because I'm telling you, it's better
It's not
than
as
you think
bad.
it is. You have
It's
this
not bad.
preconceived notion in your head that it's gross, and it's not.
It is gross.
It's not a
I've
preconceived
had
notion. I
eggplant before.
tasted it and I didn't like it.
Well, you
I
had it
feel-
wrong.
You guys have this preconceived notion, everything I hate, it's because I've never tried it. I've tried everything I don't like.
No, that's not why we
No,
don't think
here's
it's
the
not
thing.
true.
You decided though when you were like 3 that you didn't like these things, and you're going, "See, I tried it." It's like, yeah, but you tried it 35 years ago.
I watched
so
you
it doesn't-
gag eating a cheddar-covered piece of broccoli.
Yeah, it was gross, and that was semi-recently, so there's my proof.
No, but there's no way that could have tasted bad because it was 90%
It would only taste
cheese,
like cheese at that
1%
No,
bro-
it tastes
not
like
10%.
broccoli, which tastes like farts.
Broccoli plus cheese sauce is very good, though.
It is
It's
one of my
so-
favorites.
You also tried to do it to me with the Brussels sprout, and I almost threw up.
I don't like Brussels sprouts. I'm with you there. I tried. I don't like them.
I like Brussels sprouts. I feel like they were given a bad rap to us as kids. Our entire
No.
lives, it was like, Brussels sprouts, I don't want to eat those. And I didn't for like 30 years. I ate one and was like, this is delightful.
See, I mean,
This
I
means the
like a
pod
lot of
people got you.
vegetables.
Big
I like a
vegetable.
lot of vegetables.
I want to
Asparagus, good. Wouldn't make a good parm, but that's good.
Asparagus, good. Yeah.
I like,
so,
I like carrots about the only like vegetable I'll eat. I mean, I'll like a cooked carrot I'll eat. As for like, I'll have a salad. Like lettuce is fine, obviously. Cucumbers I like, but
or
I don't like
obvious leaf.
anything. I'll give you that.
Thank you. No, so anyways, I do want to move forward a little bit. We get to this point where after Darrin's talking to a few different people about the situation, we get to him and Samantha together again in their home. And it's like she's like sitting there like anxiously awaiting his decision. Like he was like, "You're going to give me some time to figure this out." And she's just like hoping he's going to accept her and stay together. And he's like, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. And as long as you promise to never use your witchcraft ever again, then I will stay with you. And she's like, "Oh, thank you. And it's like, I think that's like the only stuff about this episode that's cringy to me is this like, I will be your best housewife.
Subservient.
It's just, and I guess it's just looking at it through different eyes and, so many, decades later. But to see it, it's so weird to me.
I think it would have worked better if they showed them pre-relationship a little more and showed she just wants to be normal. Other than
Yeah,
they
that
got
would make sense,
married
yeah.
and instead of they got married and he's forcing her to change. Because that's fucked up.
It never
Yeah, but
looks
it's part of the
great.
narration. Samantha's been trying very hard to be a normal woman, right? It's all you need, and then show her at the store being like, ketchup, catsup, ketchup, catsup, and then you're like, okay.
Are you here
I
to
get
help me
this
with my
now.
ketchup problem?
One thing quickly I just want to pull out. I don't like to pull out but this guy was in this and this guy was in that very often, unless I think it's something very interesting. The bartender Al in the last scene, the actor that is Paul Barcelou, his greatest acting credit, one of the greatest acting credits of all time. You know the scene in True Lies where Arnold has that giant fight in the bathroom, and there's like all the toilets are breaking and everything. At the very end, all of the stalls fall down, and there's just a scared old guy pooping, holding the newspaper. That is Al the bartender from the Bewitched pilot. And when I saw that, I was like, "What a hero! He deserves a Walk of Fame star for that alone. What a great
Old pooping
fucking
man."
role." Yeah, I think he's like scared man on toilet. I think is what the credit is actually.
Old pooping Al.
See, you can make poop jokes.
Also, did you say you hate doing that? Because you do that all the time. Naming actors.
No, I hate doing it too much. Like, I don't want to be like, "Oh, and this person was this and this and that," unless it's like something interesting.
Oh, okay.
Like, I thought the narrator being Bob for RoboCop's dad was interesting. Maybe it's just
That's
interesting to
awesome.
me. I don't know. RoboCop rules. But I thought everybody would enjoy that he was the scared guy on the toilet from True Lies. Arnold for president.
So now we see in the next scene, Darrin's at work, and we have this girl, Sheila, who...
Hey, did you notice his who he works for? Mr.
did-
McMahon?
Oh, I did not.
It says
Mr.
it on the door.
McMahon.
It says
Mr.
McMahon
McMahon.
and Tate.
So, the Sheila, I assumed it was... did they blatantly say that they were exes? Because it was strongly implied that these two used to date.
I think it's an
I didn't
implication, but
remember.
it's a strong implication.
Yeah.
No, he even apologizes to her that he got married and stuff. So I don't think he would have apologized for hurting her if they weren't dating in the past.
But so how long was this? Because she went to the Hamptons, and they were in
No,
Connecticut.
the Bahamas.
Or did she go? I thought she said she went to the Hamptons. So she went
Either
to the
way,
Bahamas.
it's a short time.
But yeah, you're not going to be
means-
there for 6 months.
Which only goes to say that he got married super quick.
Yeah, though I'm agreeing with that, but it's also crazy that she comes back and she's like, "Oh, that guy I was dating 3 weeks ago, he just got married to somebody else. Oh well, I'll go take a look and talk to him." I feel like you just cut connection with that person. You'd be like, well,
You think Samantha may have bewitched him?
Ooh,
Like she's used the power to make him fall in love? I mean, the show is called Bewitched.
I feel like they would have hinted towards it at some point, right? That early narration, they would have had that little... Until one day, and you see her look at him a certain way, but...
Yeah, like Aliens in the Family.
I don't like that that's come up twice already.
Aliens in the Family, for those of you listening, we covered that before. It was a TGIF show, and yeah, I mean, it kind of was. It was almost like Stockholm Syndrome, right? Because she was abducting him, and then all of a sudden they got married. But yeah, the scene here with Sheila, it was just, there's this kind of... She's very flirty with them. She's... And they definitely do the contrast, right? Because Samantha is blonde and Sheila has to be brunette. So now
Yeah,
you
it's
have
smart though. It's like the good versus evil,
Yeah.
right? Light and
yes.
dark.
So, and she's like talking to him and she's very flirty with him in the office.
She kisses him right on the lips.
She
Yeah.
kisses him.
She also does it later in front of Samantha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she knows how much he likes to kiss because
Yeah.
Darrin's a kisser.
I love
He's
the
a
kiss.
kisser. And yeah, and it was one of those, as they're talking, he finally has to kind of slip in that, like, hey, I have something to tell you. I got married. And she's like, oh, I know. It's like, you know? Like, and it's like,
Word
yeah.
gets
and
around.
Then, yeah, and then invites them over for like a dinner and assures him that it's going to be a very low key thing, just a few people over, like nothing, like, sitting on the floor kind of thing, as she says it is.
I shouldn't have so many questions, but I have so many questions about their wedding. Because, like, obviously her family wouldn't have been there. Did they just
Right.
elope? Did they have no guests at their wedding? Did they go to Vegas and get married by
Them
Elvis?
eloping
Like,
doesn't sound crazy.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think
but
they
they're so
elope because-
old-fashioned, I don't think they'd want to elope.
But also later in this earlier in this episode, when he's talking to Samantha,
Samantha, get over here.
What are the Samanthas going on here? But earlier he's talking to Samantha and talking about all the duties she must do as a wife. One of them is we go to my mom's house for dinner every Friday. A guy who goes to his mom's house for dinner every Friday is inviting his mom to his wedding.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Good point. Yep.
But it is very possible that, yeah, his family was invited and they just had excuses and said, oh, her family's not from around
Or
here
maybe the
something.
dinner every Friday is penance for not getting invited to the wedding.
Yeah.
For the rest of time. And they make him eat eggplant parm.
That Samantha could turn into chicken, so it's fine.
Everybody wins.
So Darrin eventually does accept this invite to come over with Samantha to Sheila's house. But this is all under, again, the guise of, it's going to be like a real small thing. It's like a potluck, sit on the floor, kind of relax thing, just a few people.
Did you see what they brought as a dish for the potluck also?
No,
I didn't notice.
Yeah, they brought nothing. What the fuck? You get invited.
Thank you,
okay.
Joe.
You show up with
Thank
no
you,
food?
Joe. I was going to bring that up, too. It's
I didn't
And then
know
she
that.
could have walked in and then been like, look, a mouse. And like, and like pulled up something, right? But no. Hey, everybody's going to make food and we're all going to share. It's communal. What are you going to bring? Fucking nothing.
Well, here's the thing, though, and because there's the next scene is like flashing to them entering this party, and the two of them are outside, and Samantha's worried that she's not dressed enough. He's like, no, it's like a casual thing, don't worry. And not that she looks bad. She's not like, nowadays, if you were to bring someone...
She's wearing a lovely dress.
Yeah, she's in
Yeah.
a dress because, like, at that time, everyone got dressed nice to do anything anyways, but...
He's in a suit and she's in a dress. And they walk in and they're like, you guys are terribly underdressed
Yeah,
for this
look
party.
at these schlubs. But yeah, no, the door opens and you find out this is not a sit on the floor kind of thing. First off, she lives in like a mansion.
It's a
and
huge mansion.
Yeah, and it's like this big like with service and catered, like it's a nice dinner. It's not a potluck. It's not a sit on the floor. And this was obviously all a deliberate setup to have Samantha show up and feel inferior when she shows up and meets Sheila and all these other people. And that's kind of the setup of this dinner. It was all set up for her to feel uncomfortable when she got there.
Do you think her goal is annulment?
Sheila's? I don't know. It's like
She's just jealous and loves...
I think it's just to just be mean at this point. Like
Yeah, I
she
think
didn't get the
so.
guy she wanted, so now she needs this girl to feel inferior. It's not necessarily with the overall goal of having him one day necessarily, but
It's girls be catty.
yes, I think it's just that. It's just not so. It's not supposed to be much deeper than she's just evil and wants Samantha to feel bad.
You got this guy and I want to fuck with you.
Yeah. So now we get them like at the dinner itself, and they're sitting there, and again, like, Ferg, I think it was you mentioned it earlier, the way that you just kind of see Samantha react and stuff, and how uncomfortable she looks, and like, she has this sweetness to her that like really resonates the whole time.
What's fucked up is that Darrin is sitting next to Sheila, and
That was definitely
Samantha.
intentional, though. Like, you could tell it wasn't by their choice. They were set up in a situation where the only available seats were polar opposite of the table.
I'm
They
willing
basically
to bet
make her
that
like the weirdo table at a wedding.
the freaks at table 9.
She's the freaks at table 9. Yeah, she's Brian Posehn in The Wedding Singer, that movie that we all went to see together that time.
But I'm willing to bet that there was a scene that hit the cutting room floor when she was like, Darrin, darling, come sit right here. And like, she had to go sit down or something like that.
But if that's the
by
case,
herself,
like, Darrin should have been like, no, I'm going to sit with my wife.
I thought
who
the same thing.
invited
Darrin
you."
really
She
should have
doesn't-
like fucking nutted up about this one.
Yeah,
He also
Darrin's
gets up
being
to
a
help
pussy
her when
here.
her fucking dress is open and she runs off. It's like,
Don't
Yeah,
jump ahead to a
Darrin.
part where she
jumping
sneezes so
very
hard it unzips her dress, which I think is the funniest thing I've ever seen in television
Darren's
history.
a bitch. Can we just
Yeah,
can we
Darrin
discuss?
is a bitch.
Darren's just a bitch. Like, I don't like Darrin.
Agreed.
He don't deserve her.
He does not deserve her, no.
What was like? I was trying to look at their dinner. Like they were talking about like the soup. The soup looked like they were drinking water soup. It wasn't anything like that.
no, it
This
looked
was literally
like-
the Grandpa
like
Joe
split
cabbage
pea.
water. It is green and
It's
doesn't
pea
look like
soup.
it's very hot.
Pea soup. Split
pea
pea
soup's
soup.
usually thicker than that, though. It's
Yeah,
It
it's
looked
pretty
pretty
thin.
thick on my,
Did
from
it?
my perspective. I didn't think it was watery.
thick enough for me.
Not that pea water.
I don't know. Apparently, it's delicious because Samantha loved it and wants the recipe.
Well, she's just
I
being
think
nice.
she was
She's
doing
trying.
that
She's
to
trying
be
really
nice.
hard to be nice. Because also it's this weird thing where everyone's just boasting about Sheila. Like all the guests are like in front of her, like she's like this prize. Like, look at Sheila, never a hair out of place. All these things and just talking her up like right as
She has
sits
her own
there.
plane.
Yeah.
I will say the joke though, where he's like, "She has her own plane. Do you fly?" And Samantha's like, "Oh yes." It's such a great
Yes.
understated joke.
And it's just getting to that point where the whole thing is Samantha's not going to use her witchcraft, right? This is the promise. She's not going to use it. She's not going to use it. But she's getting to this point where she's being belittled so much and she's put in all these uncomfortable situations, being there, sitting complete opposite side of the table as her husband, having her, Sheila, kind of openly flirting with her husband in front of her, like all these little digs, and it just kind of gets to that point where it's just becoming too much for her. And she's not doing anything terrible, even though she has the power to do
No,
a lot more.
She is, though.
Can you imagine if she insulted her and then she just wiggles her nose and this chick's head blows up?
like the end of Scanners. Yeah.
That would have been great.
What's
But
fucked up?
She's just messing up her hair.
Well, I mean, all it's starting though. At
Yeah.
first, it's like she's just
She can be
having
a lot
it so
more mean than she is.
yeah, like it's she's looking at her and she's getting like a little bit of like spinach on her tooth and stuff like that. It's that, it's all these little things. It's nothing that evil. It's just these little, like, Sheila's not perfect. It's just little things to make her not look perfect.
Yeah, but what's fucked up is like the way that Sheila was egging her on was like, oh, hey, Darrin, do you remember that time that we went to Paris, I believe was one of them? Or she'd always like bring it back to like their dates. So like, I'm surprised she didn't like make a frog. I was waiting for like a frog to appear in the soup.
Well, I think that's why it got to that point though where, I mean, she didn't do anything that bad, but that's when all this witchcraft starts coming in because she was just so tired of being like, talked down to and all these little things where it started innocent, right? At one point, she moves Sheila's soup, so her elbow goes in the soup. It's like, and then, as it continues on, it becomes her hair starts like I thought that was a nice effect. They had like the thing, like just like a strand of hair that just kept falling down on her face.
It's definitely like somebody off screen too with like a fishing rod. You know what I mean? It's somebody just kind of like yanking it.
And like I think like she's sneezing and now it's like
The soup goes flying when she
Yeah.
sneezes.
Yeah,
The guy on the
Yeah.
other side of the table who reacts to the sneeze fucking killed me. He's
know what
like,
the more-
okay. Like,
I would say the
Well,
most
I've
obvious-
never.
The more obvious one is there's a point where like the maid walks up with an empty platter for no reason, and then all of a sudden she wiggles her
Steak on
nose, and all of a sudden there's just a giant fucking steak on it that just falls on her. It's like that's the one time I think people would have been like, "Wait a minute,
And then even
where'd the steak come from?"
even the maid or waitress is like, "I thought it was empty." Like, well, what are you doing walking over here with an empty tray though?
Yeah,
You would think Darrin at that point would be like, give her the eyes or like mug her with his face. Like,
well,
He doesn't
yeah,
realize what's going on until Samantha literally witch kicks him in the ass, which is also really fucking
right?
funny.
Like
Also,
he couldn't put the two and two together.
Samantha probably got that poor servant fired.
that's true.
That's true
But-
too, yeah.
It does get it becomes more increasing because it does start like we go from a little spinach on the tooth and a hair falling to basically the door flying open and she's stuck in a hurricane in her own hallway and her dress is about to fly off and like they were boasting about how perfect her hair is. It turns out it's a wig, so now her wig flies off and she ends up running up the stairs in embarrassment. So I mean, I feel like nothing too extreme, but it was becoming more and more to the point where Darrin should realize at this point, this isn't normal. You know, like this is
She's also mad at Darrin too, though, because like Joe said, just the witch kicked to him, but she also got him stuck in that hurricane too.
He shouldn't have been going over to her with a dress coming
Totally
down.
agree,
That's what
Gordo.
you get.
I agree.
at a whole table. Yeah, at a whole table of people. Why did Darrin have to be the one to chase her and console her when things were going wrong? You know,
Agreed. I thought
Yep.
that was super strange. And you know why? It's because he's a bitch.
Yep,
He
he
is a
sucks. He sucks. He deserved the kick, and he deserved the hurricane. And I wish that was the Addams Family stairway that just opened up and blasted
They
him.
ate him.
Ferg, how do you feel about Nick talking bad about your man like this over and over again?
I feel like I have to defend him. I think he's just nice to everybody. Right? It's not that he's like, oh, I'm going to go help my old lover. He's like, oh, this poor soul who I'm nice to.
I will say this though, I think everybody in here has been in long-term relationships. If you were in a similar situation and you did that to one of your exes, do you think it wouldn't come back around at you that you
Especially
would
if
be in trouble for that?
The ex was just like outwardly shitting on your current for the entire party. Yeah, no, that whole
and
night
you
would
weren't
have gone
standing up
differently,
for your significant other the whole time either.
Well,
and
it's-
you're a piece of shit because you showed up at a potluck with no fucking food.
Wait, but also, you're never going to be in a situation modern day where you bring like. Would you ever bring your wife to one of your ex's houses for dinner?
No.
No.
Yeah, so it's like you wouldn't even be in this situation.
No, you
Sure,
would
it's
turn it down.
it's a wild situation.
Yeah.
I have an
She
interesting
should've-
perspective
she
on
should've
this one,
been
but
she should have been like Mr. Tate's like daughter or something. Like there should have been a reason why he doesn't want to disappoint her. Like she's his boss, Mr. Tate's daughter, or something like that. Where
Right,
he-
I mean-
if he upsets her, he could lose his job and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we know
Sheila
they
is short
work
for
together.
Stephanie. She is Stephanie McMahon, and that has been the problem this whole time.
They all work together, so maybe there's that. Like, hey, you know, we used to be a thing. Now I'm married. Like, I hope everything's cool. And she's like, oh, darling, I'm having everyone over. Like, I want her to feel like she's part of the crew. Like, he realizes that, I guess in essence, there's going to have to be moments now where they're going to intermingle a bit because they do work together. So maybe that was his, all right, well, you know, we'll just kind of tackle this early, and if they get along, then everything's cool.
Also,
But-
why does he never say anything to her about how she told him that it was like a sit on the floor thing, casual, and then it's like
Yeah.
a fancy dress thing? Like this is all from her. She clearly did that on purpose. He doesn't go, what the hell?
He
Yeah.
could have made just a little under his breath comment to Sheila at some point, like, whatever happened to sitting on the floor? Like, just something like that, just to acknowledge it.
Because he
He's just like, well, I'm in my suit.
because he doesn't stand up for his wife.
I thought, I kind of like, though, that we see Samantha go from very kind of shy and uncomfortable in the situation to after she gets this leg up on Sheila, even with Darrin, who, like I said, earlier in the episode, she's begging him, like, please let me be your housewife. Like, I won't do my witchcraft. To in this moment where she clearly kind of defied that, used it anyways. And when he sits down at the table after all this commotion happens, he looks at her and she has a very confident look about her, which I kind of liked, where she's almost like, well, you're in it now.
fuck with
know?
you think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
no prenup, bitch.
I think we're not there yet, too, but at the end of the episode, too, and like, it ends on a one-liner from Samantha where you're like, okay, she is fully confident in who she is now, and she's, like, you know, stepped out from under whatever she was at the beginning of it.
Oh, and she's like, oh, and this soup is wonderful. I'll have to get the recipe.
Yeah, because she's the only one that, like, everybody else is aghast with the situation that transpired. And she's the only one. Yeah, and she's the only one that's
bloop.
bloop bloop in your soup.
And then, like the final scene from there is, you know, we get back to the house and they walk in and the kitchen's a mess. And Darrin does want to go
This is a Herny
upstairs
scene.
together.
A hernie?
Yeah, like a Herny toad.
It's Ernie Darrin.
It's
So,
Herny
yeah, he's-
Darrin.
He's kind of like anxiously looking forward to heading upstairs and having a moment with his wife after this party. she's like, well, I can't, like, I need to clean the kitchen, like, do my...
I love how his argument is, nah, don't worry about it. Let's just go back up. He's like, no, you're right. You probably should clean the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's like, I do want to have sex with you right now, but your fucking job is to clean this kitchen.
Isn't it
What a
crazy,
piece
though?
of
But that is,
shit.
like, that is the mindset
That's
of,
just
like,
how it
an
was,
American
yeah.
couple in
It's
the
true,
60s. Like,
What's
and he's
funny-
telling himself, like, hold on, like, I can't give her these goods
put
before
this-
she does her duties. I do have to...
my libido is calling.
You're right.
but-
My dick can wait.
She's going to have to earn it.
It's funny too, like
If not, I oughta.
but the level of dirty the kitchen was, like every single plate they own for some reason is out
Everything?
and on the
That's all
counter.
they would,
Yeah.
because they were just fucking and eating.
They were
But he thinks
eating
it's a
that.
jerk. I would
What
say
were
this
you
one is like-
watching? What did you
What do you mean? I wasn't watching a. Maybe I watched the wrong Bewitched,
Yeah.
but they were just having sex, eating, then being like, "Oh, I don't want to clean the dishes. Let's go have more sex." Dishes are dirty. Dishes are left up on to be dirty.
How long
They
was
weren't
it
even
Hold on
dirty
there,
dishes.
though?
They were just a bunch of dishes
wait,
on the counter.
Wait, that Jay, timestamp that one because that might be another one you could text. to
This might,
speech.
this might be a time where I'm gonna have to write the entire quote of what Gordo just said.
What? You guys know I'm right.
Gordo, I can't verify that you're right because I don't even know what you said.
You're gonna look it back, and you're gonna look back on that. I hope you do. I hope you put it text to speech because you're gonna be like, "Oh damn, Gordo, you make so much sense."
Gordo talks in tongues and then like looks at us going, right?
What do you mean I talk in tongues?
So you said that they were having sex while eating or something like that. So they're having sex and eating.
Because yes. Because
What, at the dinner table, like while eating?
If they
No,
could eat,
no.
if they could have sex and eat, they could have sex and clean. She's just doing the dishes.
No, that's not how it works. You know, like
I'd rather have
to
that
make
than
me
eating.
a sandwich. Like, come on, it's that time.
I mean, if they could do the stand-up, she could do the dishes.
It's not. That's not the time of the. That's not what used to happen back in the day.
No, that is
Very
bullshit.
vanilla.
Oh, like the blowjob was invented in 1982. Come on, man. It's not. He's not just going up there and being like, "Missionary Monday, baby, let's go." She's a witch and he is horny. They're doing whatever he wants.
Lucy Tuesday.
They're banging on the ceiling.
Well, you
Yeah,
see,
their
this is-
sex is gonna look like the first girl who gets killed in Nightmare on Elm Street, who just gets dragged up
around the
wall
room.
and across the ceiling.
No, because he doesn't want her to do witchcraft, which is again stupid because you could just like be floating like in space and like nope.
And pooping.
I'm just I don't know how to reply to half the things you say. Like, but
It is
all right,
impressive though
let's-
that we've all known each other for this long, Gordo, and you can still make four of us just go like, I don't know what to say. Like I don't have a
It's a
retort.
gift. It's a gift.
It really is.
But again, the way the scene pans out is they go back home. It's the dirty kitchen. And he wants to go upstairs, and she's insisting, like, I have to clean first. And as we said, they eventually get into this conversation of, okay, sure, you have to clean. I'll be upstairs waiting for you. He goes upstairs, and we kind of have that moment where she's alone, and she could be cleaning the conventional way, but instead does it the way that anybody should do if they have said powers. And, you know, a little twitch of the nose, and everything is in, you know, perfect order in the kitchen. And this
And
is...
if he walks back in, he's like, "I told you no magic.
What
Get
out of the house! Get out of the house!
We're done."
He starts
And then I
making
get to see him like
dishes.
having that conversation with his friend at the bar again, and his friend's like, "Wait a minute, why did you kick her out?"
What am I
Made
speaking
the dishes
foreign?
disappear.
But yeah, it's anybody on, and I think that's the thing, right? That should have been the argument from day one: is, hey, listen, like, just don't use it out of the house. And if that was the agreement, then like, I guess that would have been a little bit better. Like, don't do anything that affects anybody else, but like anything within the house or that's harmless is fine. Like, why would that be from his perspective? Why is it so bad if instead of her like slaving away in the kitchen for the next 2 hours to clean everything, she just cleans it up and goes upstairs? It benefits you both.
But she's like, man, this mattress is all lumpy and I can't get a good night's sleep. It's like, well, why don't we just go to the match? I can make it right now. I was like, nope. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to sleep with this lumpy mattress. And 6 months from now, we'll get a new one. Like, no, you would not fucking do that.
Right. I think there's like a limit, right? Because there can't be a point where all of a sudden like people come over. It's like, It's like, where'd you get a gold bathtub from?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Solid gold
Yeah.
rocket
There's a
car.
limit,
That's
but-
new.
There's a limit, but yeah, like this harmless stuff. And there was, to go way, way back to the beginning, there was a mention that she says she can only do like small things. And I don't know if that's her underselling the power that
Well,
she
no,
has.
even her mother said she's a young witch. So I don't think she's like
Yeah.
totally honed her skills yet.
So
You
there,
remem-
yeah,
Yeah,
so we
she's
don't
not
even
good
know
at
what
it.
her full capabilities are.
She
But,
tries to send the mother away at some point with magic, and it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
That is
Yeah.
true. and
Yeah.
I did fail to mention that. There was a point when she tried doing that, but I just kind of took that as the mother's more powerful regardless. Like, even if Samantha was more, at a
full
certain
strength.
level.
But even if these are her only skills, it's like, well, the house is always clean in less than a second, and I always have a whiskey in my hand. Like, he should have
Yeah,
nothing
and-
to complain
right.
about.
And apparently she can, like, make a perfectly cooked steak appear out of nowhere. So,
Right.
Yeah. And a hurricane.
Well, I wouldn't want hurricanes in my
Yeah,
house
it's
all
not
the
one of those
time.
things where, like,
but
my wife does really well.
it's
You know,
great.
I mean,
It's so breezy in my house all the time.
Hey, on a hot day, that must be nice.
imagine you have like a neighbor you don't like, and you could just send like a hurricane and like rip up his lawn, lawn ornaments. and
But
stuff.
I'm saying there is a difference between harmless witchcraft and doing things like that which hurt people.
Well, witches
Bewitching.
can use dark magic.
She doesn't seem like the dark magic type, though. She's mischievous.
You don't know that.
We kind of
I'm just, as our job is to
Because-
read a show from a whole episode, what I read from this episode is she is not evil, she is mischievous.
Her most evil thing was having the girl's wig fly off, which is like after.
No, it's the kick to the butt to Darrin.
But it wasn't like,
Unzipping her dress at the party might be worse, though.
That was like a physical assault.
yeah, but we didn't like, her dress didn't like fly off. I kind of thought they were going to do that thing where
That could have went the other way around, though. That could have turned Darrin on more.
Darren was like, oh, I forgot about those.
Yeah,
He messed her.
I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought the dress was going to fly off and she was going to have to do like the two-arm cover and stuff like that.
Not
as
in
she runs away.
1964.
Yeah. Yeah, but she would have had like
No.
long undergarments on. You know what I mean? She would have almost had like
Yeah.
that silky under thing, like the slip dress type thing. It would have been like something like that.
Yeah, she would have had like a 60s bathing suit that like covers from like up here all the way
Yeah,
down.
it wouldn't have been
Yeah, like a
showy. I'm not
corset.
saying I'm
Those
not saying
red
she would have been
stripes, they really
exposed.
went all out for
Yeah,
it.
she wouldn't have been exposed. She just would have had a layer less on, which would have made her uncomfortable at the moment. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of where that final scene lands us. Is just her using her witchcraft to clean up the kitchen, and then she finds her way upstairs after that. And it was she was like, what was her last line? It was something
Maybe I can
along.
taper off.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's the acknowledgement of, you know what, I'll do my best, but you
Rome
know,
wasn't
it's,
built in a day.
right. It's not. It's like, I told them I'll stop, and I will eventually. I think. But I
We
thought it
know
was
she doesn't.
well, we know for at least the next 9 years or so she doesn't. but yeah, that's the conclusion of the episode. I don't really have a lot of personal things I wanted to bring up about the show. I mean, we talked about her relationship with one of the executive producers was one of her ex-husbands. I think it was her third husband by this point. I did go into like a little bit of a deep dive on Elizabeth Montgomery herself.
Yeah, same. This was her third husband, and she ended up being her husband until she died.
Nope. She got married again.
The one that you might be right, actually. But either way, whatever her husband was around when she died is actually still alive.
Yeah, so she married.
There
she
are some
married one more
people
time
involved
after
in this show, yeah, who are super old. The producer of this show, the creator of this show, rather, died at the age of 100. Which is like, god damn.
And yeah, she just was one of those people where I guess the theory was she kind of like always liked older guys, and she was kind of always marrying the troubled types, but was always like searching for love. And she was she got sick somewhat young, not like young, but in the large scope of life, I think.
Yeah, she died at 62, I think.
Yeah, so I feel like that she did other roles, and from what I heard, the show kind of got to that point where once it got into the later seasons, especially once Dick Sargent came in, she actually had a much better relationship with Dick Sargent than Dick York. At that point, she was like getting over being Samantha, and she kind of wanted to do other things, and the show was just kind of running its course to the point where there's like, they were basically reusing scripts, and it would be the same scenarios happening again, but they would just kind of reword certain things. And I guess 9 years into a show about witchcraft, there's only so much you can do.
If you think at the time, too, Batman, the 60s Batman show was so popular, right? And Adam West, to his dying day, was like, look, I respect what Batman did for me, that people love it, but, like, he hated the, like, next 20 years of his life because it was so hard to get any work because everyone just saw him as Batman.
Right, and I would say if you look at Elizabeth Montgomery's career after that, she did other things, but, I mean, it's tough to shake such a large, iconic role after you play it.
Yeah, there are degrees of typecasting that I don't think people
like Napoleon
understand.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's the thing, though, but when you look at Elizabeth Montgomery, she's a beautiful, charming woman who, like, seemingly you think had this role obviously put her in this point where, look, it's 2023 at the time of this recording, and we're still talking about her, and this was an iconic show. And, like, so she got all the success and notoriety from it and stardom that you'd wish to get. But also, if she hadn't landed this one but got the right movie, she could have been one of those big Hollywood starlets that had, movie after movie that she starred in too, But it's just kind of which one she fell into. And I guess you always kind of want the one you didn't get.
It's strange to think about Hollywood in this time too, is probably like a completely different animal than it is today. Like to the point where we don't understand how it worked back then. So
it's a long time ago.
put her in the same career trajectory today. Does it go differently? Maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, just that run would have been different. Like, I feel like if it happened, if you move her to a point where she's like starting that show like around now at the same age that she was when she started then, the show would have had its run. She would have got popular, but there would have been all these other opportunities for her, and now like the crossover between film and TV are different, and she could have been doing movies alongside in the off season and not felt like so stale in that role, and that maybe it wouldn't have even lasted 9 seasons because she probably would have found her way out sooner.
I mean,
but,
modern day too, she's not getting that role at 31.
Was that how old she was when it started?
True.
She was
Yeah,
31.
Joe said it earlier. Yeah.
So
I don't know about that.
I imagine now too, though, like if you have an actor like her, right, you can have like there's such a huge market now for like appearances too, where like you get yourself out there, you can do smaller movies and smaller things that you want to do as an actor, right? If you're kind of typecast like that, and you can like reach out and do things even if they're not huge budget, and still make a ton of money going to sign autographs at some Comic-Con for a weekend. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a different path now for those kind of people who like that just didn't exist until monetarily very recently. I mean, we've been to Comic-Cons. The first one I ever went to with most of you guys was like literally it was just comic book writers and a bunch of nerds in rooms who were buying like bootleg VHS tapes, and now it's like this multi-$100 tickets and all these people and these photo ops. It's I feel bad that some people couldn't get that second sort of windfall.
It's crazy because it's like it's great because there's people that from this generation who still exist who go to these things, and like Jerry Mathers from Leave It to Beaver was like at like the last Comic-Con in our area, and it was like these guys who, like, I guess in the scope of things had these big shows, but the money wasn't the same then as it is now, and can kind of make these opportunities for themselves. But also you go to these things and there are people who are like, you're legit rich. Why are you here taking $20 photos of
I always
people?
wondered the same thing. Like, you see people like the David Koechners of the world. It's like you've got so much residual money from like some seriously crazy blockbuster comedies. What are you doing here?
And I love the people.
I love Koechner, and I hope that he's making a ton of money. But I think more of like Shatner. Like Shatner, you're 90 something. Yeah. You should have all the money in the world, and you shouldn't be spending a weekend doing this because you should be enjoying however many weekends you have left. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but don't underestimate just how much money William Shatner makes at these things over even like.
Oh, I know, but there's a point
right,
where
does
like
he need it now? Like it's like the thing we always say with the presidents. Why would you have the stress of being president at 80? Like that's insane. You can
you know what I think it might be? I think it might be a mindset that we can't comprehend. That get these people to where they were. They don't get there by being, these lazy, I don't want to do anything people. Like, and they just got to keep that grind going to feel alive, I guess.
Well, what about like to connect with people? Maybe that's like what keeps some of these older people young.
I would give you that, Gordo, but you hear a lot of these stories of some of these people just being like dead-eyed and looking down and not looking up.
Yeah, why am I here?
So here's the thing, right? And not to get into too much of it because like we're at the end of the episode anyways, but like last year, me and Ferg had the opportunity to meet William Daniels, who played Mr. Feeney and, from Knight Rider and all these legendary roles. But he's like deep into his 90s, and he's very old, and you can tell he's physically just exhausted at these things. And he was pleasant. He wasn't mean or anything like that, but he's there with his wife, and they've both together had long, like, storied careers and definitely are financially okay. And is it worth it to be this old to go to this many events?
Travel that much? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
get
like
it.
it's exhausting, and it's like, just maybe once in a while do them, but at the rate that they're doing them, you're like, oh, just take a step and just kind of enjoy the fruits of all your labor.
I will say, though, if they're doing it like that, like the Rolling Stones, when they tour now, this is like the most genius thing ever, right? They're like, hey, we fly out, we play 2 shows, whatever, but we stay in whatever city we're in for like a week, and you give us the best hotels in the world, and we bring our whole families, right? So it's like, yeah, we have to do a couple of shows, but like, you're kind of on a year-long vacation with all of your loved ones at that point, too, and making a ton of money. So I can see, too, if you're like a Mr. Feeney or one of those people, too, especially if you can like take your spouse with you, be like, look, we'll fly out to San Diego, we'll do this thing for one day, but then we're flying first class both ways, staying in a 5-star hotel. We'll get dinner, we'll go to the beach, you'll have a couple days, and we'll fly home. You're like, that's kind of worth it as a trade-off, because it's an excuse to go there, maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
But, listen, we've talked about all this at great length, and we're not even remotely talking about Bewitched anymore.
Actually, I have something to add. We didn't touch on the fact that there is a statue of Samantha near our home in Salem, Massachusetts.
That is a good point.
I forgot about that, yeah.
You know, and that's one of those TV land statues, because we talked about that before. Because I feel like...
I saw it recently.
I feel like there needs to be a Sam Malone one. We covered Cheers a while back, and I'd said that, like, how is there not one in front of the Cheers? Like, that makes so much sense to me.
It's not fun anymore.
Because there's that one where I feel like we need maybe we have a little time before this episode comes out if we're going to peel it back. Maybe we can get a couple of us in Salem and get a little picture in front of it to post on the Instagram.
If you're going to do it, I would do it within the next 9 days.
I was going to say,
you're right.
In October.
Yes, for those of you who don't live in Massachusetts,
it's not bad in the daytime.
It's bad throughout the month, though. It's just a madhouse. Salem in October is insufferable, and I love going to Salem, but yeah.
But when are we going to go in the middle of the day in the week? You know what I mean?
Why does it have to be in the week?
Because the weekends are going to be mad.
Weekends are going to be rough in October.
I will say this too.
I
hadn't been there in a very long time. We went to go do all the touristy witch stuff in the spring because one of my wife's friends had never done it with her husband, and they flew in. And it was just a Saturday in like May, and it was wild. It was like hard to find parking. Tickets were sold out for like hours in advance. We ended up going to a showing at like 7 p.m. like the last one. Yeah, it's crazy there all the time.
That's why come October, it's like near impossible.
Also, they're very packed in May because that's when it starts getting nice out.
Nice out again. Yeah. It was a really cold, rainy day that day too. I will say this though, as people who grew up here, right? Any of the listeners here, obviously, as a school field trip, they took us to that area all the time. Talk about the Salem witch trials. You see all the animation and animatronics and everything. Doing that again at 37 and being like, they've literally changed absolutely nothing of this is kind of wild. It's
Did you go to the House of Seven Gables?
Also, where is this supposed to be taking place, though? Because it didn't take place in Salem, Mass. I get why they put the statue there.
It's conflicting. It's in Connecticut and or New York. They say it differently in different episodes.
Okay. I was going to say, because most of those TV land statues, they try to put them in the right area. This one was just like, she's a witch, Salem. So, like, it's cool that it's there, but it's also...
But, like, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't really make sense,
but from what I gather, I think it makes
Westport,
the
Connecticut,
most sense.
or Peterson, New York. Those are the two places named.
And I think Westport, Connecticut is one of those, like, commuter towns if you live in New York, if you work in New York City downtown.
Right.
Like, but you want to have a house, you, like, take the 40-minute train ride into the city.
But anyways, let's start wrapping it up.
Hold on. It's a well-known TV sitcom and filmed its seventh. It's because they filmed their 7th season in Salem. That's why they did it. TV Land put it there.
You know why they did it? Is because she's a witch, and Salem is all
That's
about
why
witches.
they did it. Yeah, it had nothing to do with...
but when you said that they try and make the connection, but they said when you try and make the connection, that's from the official... Like
we should have got a Sabrina statue there, even though that's technically not Salem either, but it was in Massachusetts and it's like Salem adjacent.
On the set, Dick York only smoked Salem cigarettes, so they thought that would be the place to bring the statue.
All right, touche.
So anyways, let's wrap this up. green light or cancel. I'm going to go along the order I see you guys. Go Otto, you're first.
Green light. There's no way to cancel this. It didn't have a lot of laugh out loud moments, but I think that the concept, especially for the time, and again, like I kind of am struggling here, and like I think that all of us do with various things, like, do we think of ourselves back in that time, or do we think of ourselves now watching it for the first time? Either way, the concept is different and it's new, and you kind of want to see where it's going. The humor from back then to now, I would say, kind of doesn't translate as well. Or I wasn't like howling laughing, but the concept of the show is enough to keep me going. So it's a green light for me.
Ferg.
Yeah, same. Green light. I really like the special effects for the time. It's like a completely different age. I also like, during this time, we kind of touched upon it. It was like sitcoms and stuff were all so serious, and then this supernatural show comes out, and it's just so different from anything there. And then later, I Dream of Jeannie, The Monsters, everything else kind of comes from this. I thought all the acting was well, and Dick York is just so damn handsome. So, green light, but canceled Dick Sargent.
Joe.
Dick York, Dick Sargent, Sergeant York. Wayne's World. Like, it's a green light. It's a classic for a reason. I'm with you, Ferg. I love the practical effects. Like Gordo said, like, are you laughing out loud a bunch? Probably not, but I smiled and laughed enough times. Oh yes, I do fly, like, line. I literally got a chuckle out of me. Like, this is very funny. And one of the things we always do is, like, would you watch another episode? And I really think maybe I can taper off, dun 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 dun, is like the perfect way to lead you into, like, don't you want to see another episode of this? Don't you want to see the wacky adventures we're going to get into? Can she? Will she? It's a classic. It'd be interesting to go back to. I don't think it's available to watch in black and white. We all watched the colorized version, but I'd like to watch it in black and white as well as it was intended, to see if that changes anything. But yeah, for sure, green light.
Nick.
So before I get into my green light or cancel, I just thought about like a personal metric I like to use. I was talking to Jay about this yesterday, actually, when we were out. Just kind of like the laughs per minute on a show, or the LPM, I think I might call it. I specifically think about Home Improvement. Yeah, trademark. I specifically think about Home Improvement because it's a show I've been watching a lot lately in bed. Super high laughs per minute. It's up there in as far as sitcoms go, probably one of the top ones as far as laughs per minute. This show is hovering around 0 for me. I did not really laugh much at all during this show. I'm trying to ignore the nostalgia because I did enjoy this show when I was younger a lot, and I know it's a good show. I mean, it went, 250 episodes almost, so it's a juggernaut as far as sitcoms go, but I'm canceling it on the pilot. I didn't like the pilot. I agree with Ferg, the concept is interesting, but I don't think they executed it well enough to keep me wanting to come back for more, unfortunately. And it sucks because I really wanted to greenlight this show. It's such an iconic show, but this pilot did not do it for me. So I got to sit with the cancel on it.
Yeah, so for me, watching this again, we talk about it. It was really tough to separate myself from nostalgia watching. But I think just watching this episode now, I enjoyed it. I think, yeah, could there have been a little bit more humor at times? I guess. I think there's a little room for Darrin's role to be a little bit more maybe goofy and maybe kind of get into like kind of some physical comedy. And I think that's kind of the casting of Sergeant York prevented that, because he physically couldn't do much, like as far as like falling down and tripping up and stuff like that. And I feel like that role was kind of intended for that kind of a character. As far as it went, I thought it was a fun watch. I think, again, this is 1,000% on the shoulders of Elizabeth Montgomery, who I just think is just such a perfect casting for this role and was so charming that you couldn't help but be polarized watching her. So for me, it's a green light. I definitely enjoyed it. like Joe mentioned, I would have liked to have watched it in its intended form, because that's what we kind of try to do our best to, how is this presented to the world? But it's just not really as findable in the black and white. It's just kind of everywhere in the colorized versions now, which I understand why, but to my recollection, like growing up watching it on like Nick at Night and stuff, they didn't use that version. It was always like the black and whites.
Yeah,
which
it's
is what we're
strange
watching
that
now.
that's not findable, because that's
Yeah.
what was always out.
And I'm sure if you really dig, you can find it, and I'm sure there's maybe old DVD sets that have it that way, but we watched it the way we found it, and that's how you can find it too on... I'm trying to remember what platforms, just to inform you guys where you can watch it. I believe Amazon Prime was one of them. Let me double check real quick now. It says Hulu. So Hulu and Amazon both have them available. So go check that out if I'm correct, at least, in the Roku channel.
When I looked up, by the way, too, recently, it said that they were all colorized, and like the old episodes are colorized in like 2010. Where I was like, who asked for that in 2010?
Ted Turner.
Yeah, Ted Turner was like, I'm gonna do one more.
But anyways, to wrap it up, 4 out of 5 for Bewitched. So congratulations, guys. You guys live on to episode 2. Thank you for everybody who's been listening. Continue on listening throughout the month for our Halloween spooky dooky spectacular Hello month that we don't name, but yeah, we
At
got
this
3 more
point, it
shows.
is the Spooky Dookie Spectacular. That's what
Yeah,
we've been calling
it
it for
kinda
2
is.
years.
But we have 3 more shows in line for you guys, so check that out throughout the month, and we'll have all kind of supernatural type shows lined up throughout the month for you. But keep listening. Again, go to s1e1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to where to listen to us, all our social medias. S1E1pod on Instagram and X. I hate saying X so much, but hit us up there, and you can let us know shows you want to hear, suggestions, how you came to find us. We like interacting with all you guys. We truly do. It's not just a speech. So hit us up. It's nice to meet all of you guys. And that's it. That's all we have for this week. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you again next week with another new episode. Until then, thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best.
Samantha.